for our regular meeting a week late, Tuesday, December 29th, Waterloo Board of Adjustment. First item is approval of the agenda for this evening. Is there any additions or corrections? I do
move to accept.
I do have one. Are we voting on the officers, the chairman and vice chairman?
Yeah, we would normally do that the last meeting of the year. So if you would want to approve an amended agenda, we could throw that on to approve officers for 2021.
I would make that motion with the amended part.
Yeah. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor of adding that discussion item or that item?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Wait a minute. Who was the first and who was second?
John Childs first, John Beckman second.
Okay, good.
Okay, so I need approval of the revised December 29th agenda.
This is Jerry. I move that we approve the amended agenda for December 29th, 2020.
Do we have a second?
Second?
John Giles, you seconded it?
Yeah.
He thought that's what he did, but that's okay.
What, yeah, it is what I thought. Yeah.
Okay, don't sound so enthused. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. The approval of the second approval of the November 24th minutes. Since I wasn't there, I didn't really look them over, so it's up to you three. Any additions or corrections?
I think
No.
they look fine as they are. I'll move to approve. Beckman.
Thornsberry seconds.
Okay, all in favor of approval of the November 24th minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Right. Opposed? Okay, we have two discussion items today. Decision items, I'm sorry. Request, number one, request by Steve Trotsky on behalf of CGA Consultants for a special permit to allow multiple two-family residential structures on two lots in an R2 1 and 2 family residence district located north and east of 603 South Hackett Road. Staff report.
This is Wes from the staff. The applicant is requesting a special permit to place 11 two-family residential structures for a total of 22 units, on a two-lot residential subdivision. The request would not appear to have a negative impact on the surrounding neighborhood or land use, as there is a similar low-density residential surrounding the property. The proposed special permit would not appear to have a negative impact on vehicular pedestrian traffic conditions in the area. The site is served by Hackett Road, which is South Hackett Road, which is a local street and connects with Maynard Avenue, which is a local street, and Green Hill Road, which is a principal arterial. Relationship to recreational trail plans and complete streets policy. The Cedar Prairie Trail is located on the east side of the property along Green Hill Road. There is sidewalk on the north side of Maynard Avenue, but no sidewalks on South Hackett Road. As a part of the approval of the plat, a sidewalk would be required along the South Hackett Road and the proposed street, Bergen Drive. The area in question has been zoned R2, 1 and 2 family residence district since the adoption of the ordinance in 1969. Surrounding land uses and their zoning designations are as follows. To the north, residential, zoned R2, 1 and 2 family residence district. To the south, vacant land residential in Blackhawk County YMCA, Zone R2CZ, 1 and 2 family residence, conditional zoning district, R4 multiple residence district, R4CZ multiple residence, conditional zoning district, and C2 commercial district. To the east, Green Hill Road, Ascension Lutheran Church, and residentially zoned R2 1 and 2 family residence district. To the west, Hackett Road and residentially zoned R1 and 1 and 2 family residence district. The surrounding area consists of single-family homes built between 1941 and 1979. Salvation Army Women's Emergency Facility built in 1996 and wide MCA building built in 1982. The proposed request would not appear to have a negative impact on drainage in the area, as long as there's proper detention techniques put in place. No area of the request is in floodplain. There are 8-inch sanitary sewer lines located in South Hackett Road and Maynard Avenue. There is a 15-inch storm sewer in South Hackett Road and drain tiles in South Hackett Road and Green Hill Road. Future land use map designates this area as low-density residential. The proposed plat conforms to the future land use map and comprehensive plan. Gardner Edition is a 2-lot residential subdivision with a lot being 1.35 acres and lot 2 being 1.71 acres. The preliminary plat was approved by City Council with resolution number 2020-480 on June 22nd, 2020. The final plat is also on the Planning and Zoning Commission agenda. The applicants are looking to have the 2-family homes on a common lot with property being maintained under a condominium association. Therefore, the applicant is requesting a special permit to allow 2-family residential structures to be built on a single lot, since the property is zone R2, 1 and 2 family residence district, requiring a special permit. If the property was zone R3, multiple residence district or less restricted zoning, a special permit would not be required. Or if the structures were platted into individual lots, a special permit would not be required. The applicant has submitted a site plan showing that the proposed development meets all requirements of the R2 1 and 2 family residence district. Should the homes eventually be split onto individual lots, which they are not required to be split, but are required to have the ability to be split and meet all requirements. At their December 1st, 2020 meeting, and the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 9-0 to recommend approval of the special permit. Therefore, staff recommends that the special permit be approved for the following reasons. Number 1, the special permit should not have a negative impact on surrounding area. Number 2, the special permit should not have a negative impact on traffic conditions in the area. Number 3, the 2-family structures would be able to be split onto individual lots. Number 4, the special permit will create an additional infill development site.
Okay. I just have one question of clarification. You said that the sidewalk, there's not going to be any sidewalk on the north side of this property, on the Maynard Avenue side? Because you said the sidewalk's on the north side of Maynard Avenue. Is it it's across the street?
Hey, Eric, I didn't do the staff report. Can you help me out here, bud?
Yeah, this is Schrader with staff. I don't have the proposed deed of dedication in front of me. There is sidewalk on the north side of Maynard Avenue. I think as part of the deed of dedication, they were going to be required to also put sidewalk on the south side of Maynard along what would be the rear yard of the duplexes facing the new street that would be built into this development.
Okay. All right.
And
Any other questions of staff?
just one other note, the report there noted that the final plat is also on the P&Z agenda. That must not have gotten updated from when this special permit was on the P&Z agenda, but the Planning Commission did recommend approval of both the special permit, which goes on to you guys, the Board of Adjustment, and recommended approval of the final plat, which will go on to the City Council, but has not gone on to the City Council yet as they need the special permit.
So just one question. So it's clearly not going to be separated per house per lot, right?
Correct, which is why it needs the special permit.
Any particular reasons for that?
Because they intend to put it into a condo regime. So they really have no need for each unit to be on an individual lot. Although if for whatever reason the special permit was not approved, then yeah, they're still going to move forward as planned. They'll just have to do a final plat that puts them each on an individual lot.
Okay, so just a cost saving measure essentially.
So,
Yeah,
so they didn't have any jeopardy putting in all the streets there without having us approve it. Is that correct?
They originally were planning to do the individual lots. At the last minute, they changed the plan and put the final plat as just the 2 lots. But yeah, they've been approved for the construction. And if for whatever reason the special permit was not approved, then yeah, they'll just have to do the final plat, putting them each onto the individual lots.
There is no burden to any potential owners of these condos for not having them on separate lots, right?
Nope.
Okay.
I want to go back to the sidewalk question that was brought up. So they are required to place a sidewalk on the south side of Maynard between Hackett and Green Hill, correct?
I will have to look that up. I might be able to look that up now while you continue discussing. The site plan that they submitted shows the sidewalk on the east side of South Hackett and along the new street, Bergen Drive, but does not show it on the south side of Maynard. I was thinking that it was a requirement of the plat as part of the deed of dedication, but let me see if I can look that up.
Okay, and speaking of the sidewalk on Bergen, does that follow Bergen Drive all the way around from Hackett, the cul-de-sac, and back out again?
Yes, it would.
Okay. And Eric or whomever, the site plan that was provided in our packet, is that an accurate portrayal of how this is going to be developed?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there any other question?
94292.
Mr. Chair, I do have one. Were there any objections on file regarding this project?
No, there are no objections from staff.
And there's none there was no one that spoke at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and no calls that we've received on this item.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there anybody there that wishes to speak in favor of the request? Hearing or seeing none, I guess, is there anybody there that wishes to speak against the request? Okay, hearing or seeing none, there's no further questions or comments. I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the special permit for, where is this? Here we go. The request by Steve Strokey on behalf of CGA Consultants for a special permit to allow for multiple two-family residential structures on 2 lots in an R2 1 and 2 family residential district located north and east of 603 South Hackett Road be approved for the following reasons. The special permit should not have a negative impact on surrounding areas. The special permit should not have a negative impact on traffic conditions in the area. The two family structures will be able to be split into individual lots. The special permit will create an additional infill development site.
Thornsberry seconds.
Okay, any further comments or questions?
This is Schrader with staff. Just a note, I do not have the deed of dedication. That was a missing document when it went to the planning commission. And they'll have to get us that before the plat can go to the city council for approval. But in the staff report, it noted that as part of the approval of the plat, sidewalk would be required along the east side of South Hackett Road and along the new street, Bergen Drive. It did not indicate a requirement for sidewalk on the south side of Maynard. I'm guessing they must have thought that with the sidewalk on the north side and with that being the rear yard of those homes, that it must not have been needed.
Okay,
I'd actually agree with that.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Motion is carried. Decision item number 2. Request by Kazim Ustandik for a variance in the rear yard setback requirement to allow for a 10-foot setback, 20 foot less than the 30-foot rear yard setback required to allow for the construction of 2 duplexes in an R1 1 and 2 family district located south of 4245 West 4th Street. Staff report.
This is Western with staff. The applicant is requesting a variance to the rear yard setback requirement of 30 feet to allow for a 10-foot rear yard setback, 20 feet less than is required to allow for the construction of 2 duplexes. The property in question is zone R1, 1 and 2 family residence district, and has been zoned as such since being rezoned from A1 agricultural district by ordinance 5455 on June 4th, 2018. Surrounding properties are a mix of R1, 1 and 2 family residence districts, and R3 multiple family residence district. The request will not appear to have a negative impact on the surrounding neighborhood and land uses in the area, which consists of low density residential development, with the exception of multiple family residences to the west along Skyline Drive. The property is served by West 4th Street from the north and south, which is classified as minor arterial. West San Martin Drive is about 1/4 mile to the north, and West Charles Road is 3/4 mile to the south. And both of these roads are classified as minor arterials. The proposed request will be in conformance with the classification of this area as residential on the future land use map within the city of Waterloo comprehensive plan adopted February 3rd, 2003, which designates this area as low density residential. There are no public sidewalks located along the east side of West 4th Street, but there is sidewalk along the west side of the street. As a part of the final plat, there is a requirement in the deed of dedication that sidewalk is required to be installed when the lots are developed. The Solace Road recreational trail is located 3/4 of a mile to the south at the intersection of West Solace Road and Hoff Road. Kendall First Edition was originally a 5-lot residential subdivision that was recommended for approval by the Planning, Programming, and Zoning Commission on July 10th, 2018, and approved by the City Council on August 13th, 2018, with resolution number 2018-603. The applicant was approved by council on November 23rd, 2020 to replat 1.43 acres of Kendall Edition to create a 3-lot residential subdivision. Lot 1 is a 0.56 acres. Lot 2 is 0.41 acres, and Lot 3 is 0.46 acres. Lot 1 does not have any street frontage and will be accessed from a private access easement between Lot 2 and 3. No variance is being requested on Lot 1. Lots 2 and 3 both have street frontage along West 4th Street, which is the required front yard, and the required rear yard setback minimum of 30 feet is required from the easterly lot lines. The applicant is proposing to face the duplexes on lots 2 and 3 in towards the access easement and not towards West 4th Street. Even though the east lot lines are required, required rear yard, they will act like a side yard to the duplex, and the applicant is requesting that they have a 10-foot setback from the rear property lines, which is closer to what would normally be required for a side yard for a duplex, which is 10% of the lot width, not to exceed 15 feet. Criteria: lack of reasonable return. There would not appear to be a lack of reasonable return to the request, as the applicant could construct smaller units or orient the structures in a way that would meet the required setbacks. Number 2, uniqueness. There would appear to be a uniqueness to the request, as the applicant is constructing the duplexes facing the proposed driveway that will be between the two structures, which will increase the side yard setback above the minimum required and have a rear yard be more similar to a side yard requirement. Number 3, public considerations. Approval of the variance would not appear to have a negative impact on the area. There are no complaints or concerns on file. Therefore, the request by Kasim Mustanajich for a variance to the rear yard setback requirement to allow for a 10-foot setback, 20 feet less than the 30-foot rear yard setback required to allow for the construction of 2 duplexes in a R1 1 and 2 family residence district located south of 4245 West 4th Street be approved for the following reasons. The request would not appear to have a negative impact on the surrounding neighborhood. The request would not appear to have a negative impact on pedestrian and traffic conditions within the surrounding area. The request is in conformance with the future land use map and comprehensive plan for this area, which designates this area as low density residential.
Okay.
This is Schrader with staff. I would just add that there have been a few calls on this request, some just asking questions, and some expressing some concern. I think those there might be some on the call that want to express their concerns, but I mean, I'm assuming we'll go to the applicant's representative first. But then the other thing I wanted to mention is the applicant did provide a site plan, which I did email out. I'll see if I can also share my screen here. So for those of you on Zoom, you should be able to see that now. That just one of the questions was on how the units were laid out and how parking would work. This is a little hard to see on here, but there'd be a single driveway off of West 4th that would be 20 foot wide. The duplex buildings themselves would be at least 20 feet off of that 20-foot wide drive, creating a 20-foot deep parking area between the 20-foot wide private drive and the duplex units. The other question that I received was regarding their ability to build duplexes and the number of duplexes. Those are permitted by the zoning ordinance. The plat has been approved by the city council, so they can build the 3 duplexes, 6 total units. The variance request is for the setback, which will kind of impact the size of the units. Any other questions for staff?
Just which of these is 2 and 3 then? The front 2?
The front 2 are 2 and 3. Yep.
Okay.
So the ones closest to 4th Street.
Correct.
Okay. I go back. I don't know why I'm concentrating on sidewalks today, but the requirement for the sidewalk along 4th Street, is that, seems kind of silly to have a sidewalk along this that doesn't go anywhere.
This is Schrader with staff. So this area was originally platted as Kendall Edition, and this area in question was a replat of a portion of the Kendall Edition. And when the Kendall Edition was originally done, there was a significant amount of discussion on the sidewalk. With that, one side of that discussion being that if we required sidewalk along there, it would essentially not connect to anything, and the other side of that being, but if we do require it, it would allow for a fairly short infill gap for making it connect to existing sidewalk. Just a couple hundred feet to the south along Audubon Drive, there is no sidewalk on the east side of West 4th Street in that vicinity now, but the Planning Commission did decide to require sidewalk at least along the lots in question. And then when the portion of Kendall was replatted into these 3 lots, that requirement was carried forward in what's been approved by the city council. So that's a requirement already covered.
Okay. Any other questions of staff?
They'll come later.
Okay. So, the condos or duplexes farther north on Trent Lane, those are very close to the street too. Are those similar? Would that be similar to the setbacks that we're looking at here?
This is Schrader with staff. I'd have to review those to review all the setbacks. I would assume that they're somewhat similar. They might be smaller because I believe that area is zoned R2, whereas this area is zoned R1, which both the R1 and the R2 allow for either single family homes or duplexes. The R1 just has a little bit larger minimum lot size and larger setbacks, 30-foot front and rear instead of 20-foot front and rear as required in the R2. Trent Lane was, I think it might be a private street, but it was laid out as a tract. So it does become the front yard of those. So I think along the units that are adjacent to 4th Street there, because Trent Lane is a separated street tract, that Trent Lane became their front yards and 4th Street became their side yard. So it only had to meet a smaller half the normal front yard setback. So I believe the closest unit might be as close as 10 feet to the right of way from 4th Street along Trent Lane, whereas these will be maintaining the minimum 30-foot front yard setback from West 4th Street.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I guess it just,
Chris, it'd be the ones to the north.
yeah. North, did I say south? North, yeah.
That one, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any
So
other
what-
questions?
yeah, so just a clarification question for me. So essentially what you're saying is due to the way the ordinance is written, the side yard is considered the backyard.
Correct.
Okay. What is the side yard ordinance? How many feet do they need to be away from stuff for that?
In the R1 for a duplex, it's 10% of the lot width with a maximum required of 15 feet.
Okay. And it meets that. On the south end it meets that.
Maximum of 10, 15. Doesn't make sense.
Side yard, yeah.
It'd be,
So if you had a 200-foot lot, you don't have to have 20.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
depending on how you would define the lot, because you're kind of looking at it as a side yard that's not technically the side yard, but if you're
Right.
going with the north-south street frontage of 124 feet, then the normal side yard required for that width of a lot would be 12.4 feet.
Yeah.
And they're asking for 10.
Eric?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you, but honestly, if 12 or 15 would be okay for us too, as long as we can consider it as a rear yard.
You want to introduce yourself?
Yes, sorry, I'm Mercy Amasadonagich. I'm the daughter-in-law for the Kasim.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so then so it's saying the 30 foot, they just want to move that from being the quote unquote back and front yard to the actual side yard, which is to a normal person in the backyard. That's okay. Why is this so confusing in the ordinance? just out of curiosity.
So, and this isn't technically a corner lot because it's just a private drive, not an actual street, but on a corner lot, it does get tricky. And it depends which way, you face, that can cause it to be tricky. But the ordinance defines the front yard as the narrow dimension street frontage, regardless of which way you face a house, and defines the rear yard as opposite that. This lot isn't technically a corner lot since, like I said, it's just a private driveway. So it only has the one street frontage. So that's the required front yard. And opposite of that is the required rear yard. But they're kind of, pointing to the uniqueness of that they're facing it inwards towards a private drive. And the way they're laying it out, that easterly property line, which the zoning ordinance requires as a rear yard, is more like a side yard to them. And the northerly side for the north unit and southerly side for the south unit, the ordinance requires, would consider the required side yard, but to them it's more like the rear yard, and they're noting that they would meet a normal 30-foot rear yard setback from those lot lines.
So essentially they want to treat the private drive as the street frontage.
Right.
Okay.
And I think it's worth mentioning that all three of these structures are going to have a West 4th Street address, correct, Eric?
Correct.
Well, that's weird. But okay.
Yeah, because
Well, they could probably put the mailbox down on 4th Street.
Mike's.
Okay, is there any other questions of staff? Okay, is there anybody else who wishes to speak in favor of the request, or is there anything else that, I'm sorry, I can't remember your first name, that was the daughter-in-law?
Marcia.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't have it up on, oh, there it is.
This is Paul Hamburg. I've got one more question. I'm pretty and I live back in the Audubon subdivision. I've got one more question. I'm pretty sure it was answered in between there, but if we consider the access road, the front yard essentially, and took the request of 10 foot up to 15 foot, would there be a variance needed at all, or would this still meet a standard property request or standard property build?
This is Schrader. It would still need the variance because the zoning ordinance defines the West 4th Street side as the front yard, and opposite that, the easterly property line as the rear yard.
Okay.
12.4 feet. If the private drive was actually a dedicated named street, even as a private street, that could change things, although the narrow dimension street frontage would probably still be West 4th Street. But in a layout where the private drive was a street, and if it were the narrow dimension street frontage, then the easterly property line would have a 12.4 foot side yard setback.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, thank you.
Eric?
Yep.
About the street, about the private street there, we're planning on putting, getting that address as the private street, and said, as somebody mentioned, that the address is 4th Street. Do you know what I mean?
The Schrader staff, no, that's the first I had heard that, that it won't change the variance required. But that is possible to do that, but there would be a separate application and a process to go before the planning commission and the city council to name that private street.
Okay.
Okay.
They want it both ways.
Is there anybody else wish to speak in favor of the request?
So I just have I have a question. This is Bob Krogh, a long-term.
Are you speaking in favor of the request?
I have just a question.
All right.
I'm sorry, just for the minutes, to be accurate, Bob, what's your last name and address?
Krogh, Krogh, and 1559 Dakota Drive.
Okay,
So my
thank
question
you.
is, I'm trying to remember on the plat that we saw, is it essentially two 80-foot? It looked like originally it was platted for two 80-foot lots in terms of frontage, or was it three?
This is Schrader with staff. I would have to pull up the original plat, but essentially what Kasim has acquired and replatted was the equivalent of about 2.5 of the original lots from the Kendall edition. I'll pull up in the meantime and look what the original.
Well, that's fine. I guess my basic question is that I can understand and appreciate as a developer wanting to put 3 buildings in this space. But in terms of aesthetics, it would look better if we had 2 nice homes facing 4th Street. And I don't know that, and this is something that maybe can be considered as general policy. Do we have a density requirement? I mean, how many people can you put on, so many square feet of lot?
Yeah, this straighter with staff. The R1, well, all districts do have a density requirement, including the R1, and they are well exceeding the minimum lot size requirements for all the density requirements. I'll turn to it here, but in the R1, 1 and 2 family residence district, the minimum lot size is 9,000 square feet for a single family home and 10,000 square feet for a 2-family home. So they're.
So it's over 30,000 feet. Right? 10,000 square feet per building.
No, 5,000 per 10,000 for a duplex.
Right.
So not 10,000 per unit.
No. I'm sorry. I misspoke. Per building. 10,000 per building. 2 units.
Right. So 30,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Would
Okay.
be the minimum lot size in the R1 to build 3 2-unit buildings. And
how many square feet? How many square feet do we have in this?
It's over 2 acres, so well over that. I can look it up.
Okay, that's fine.
80,000. 80, 90.
Bob is right. It would look nicer if they just put 2 nice homes facing 4th Street.
Okay,
And
let's,
lined them up with the.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, we need to get back on our schedule here. We're still talking about anybody else who wishes to speak in favor of the request. People that are talking against the request, we'll have your session here in a second.
Oh, okay.
So hearing none, okay. At this point, then we would entertain anybody to speak against the request.
My name's Tony Pintberg.
Just please make sure you give your name and address.
My name's Tony Pintberg, 1925 Redtail Drive.
Oh.
Okay.
And I am opposed to this variance request. It appears that the variance would reduce overall green space in order to accommodate a site plan with structures that are larger than what can be accommodated easily if the city code and neighborhood covenants were followed. It was referenced that this is consistent with the neighborhood. However, the developments that have significant multifamily units are not within the Audubon Park neighborhood or directly adjacent to the proposed space. The desire to build more and bigger units than the land can accommodate is not a sufficient rationale to approve this variance. Approving this variance is beneficial only for the developer and provides no benefit to the larger Waterloo community, and particularly no benefit to the Audubon Park neighborhood. In fact, reducing the green space in this neighborhood is simply to accommodate more and larger structures within the smaller lot size is a detriment. It decreases the aesthetics of the neighborhood, and this will negatively impact property values. The existing multifamily or bi-attached homes in this neighborhood are not duplexes, if you will. They rather are owner-occupied residences that have the same aesthetics consistent with the single-family homes in the neighborhood. Large backyards, large front yards, and side yards. So I'm opposed to a variance that changes the aesthetics of this neighborhood simply to benefit the developer. And there are alternative lots and developments, some of which you spoke about today, such as the Trent neighborhood area, that can accommodate the number and size of the desired structures, allowing for compliance with city setbacks. So my fundamental position is that I am opposed to the variance request to change the setback and reduce that setback requirement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that wish to speak against the request?
This is Paul Hamburg again. Sorry I didn't give my address before. It's 1882 Audubon Drive. I would say I am against it, but the only caveat being that I'd be okay with like a 15 feet, just given that the way I'd say the rule is written there, with 4th Street being kind of the front yard, and the way that these are being built is that 4th Street is the side yard. I'd be okay with a 15-foot setback. That more aligns with the access road being the front yard, and then kind of the east side being the side yard. And with that, if the access road was considered the front yard, no variance would be needed if it were 15 feet instead of the 10-foot requested.
Okay.
So this is Bob again, and I would just echo what Tony noted. I thought she did a nice job explaining the perspective from the residents in Audubon Park. It's not consistent with Audubon Park. There's nothing like it, and so for that reason, I'm opposed to it as well.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak against the request? Okay, hearing or seeing none. Board members, is there any other questions or comments before I ask for a motion?
Yes, so a variance will be required regardless of, no matter what, right, Eric?
This is Schrader with staff. A variance is required no matter what for them to have less than a 30-foot setback to the east. And then just the other, comment I would note, there was kind of discussion indicating concern against the setbacks and the units. Regarding the units, that's approved. That's not what the Board of Adjustment is considering. Even if the variance is granted, they will be able to build the 3 duplexes, the 6 units. Regarding, the ownership makeup, the applicant's representative can speak to that, but it is my understanding that the applicant, Kasim Mustadanovic, is proposing to build these units. He's proposing to live in one and proposing family members that will live in others. So I think it is that same type of general makeup as to the other duplexes in the area. Its layout is definitely a little bit different in that it's basically 3 duplexes kind of facing inward off of a private drive. But other than that difference to it, I would say it's very similar to other duplexes in the area, including the ones on the end of Redtail that have their side yards or rear yard facing West 4th Street. Similar lot sizes as well.
So essentially, if we deny this, they just have to make smaller duplexes.
Correct.
I'm sorry, they'd have to do what, John?
They'd have to make smaller duplexes.
Okay.
That's all we're able to change here. If we say no, then the buildings will still be built, but they'll just be smaller.
I would just like to, this is Tony Pintberg again, and I would just like to assert again that I am in opposition of this variance because it does take away green space. So I would be in favor of the smaller size construction.
Okay, board members, I would entertain
Mr. Chair,
a motion.
I got a quick question for Eric. Eric, if they go with the smaller structure, are we looking at then 2 garage stalls?
This is Schrader with staff. So I did speak with Kasim earlier today. He was hoping to be able to attend in person, but the city is not currently allowing that. So he's having his daughter-in-law represent him on Zoom. But yeah, the site plan that I emailed out and put up on my screen a little bit ago, I could put it back up if anyone needs it, was kind of his attempt to reflect that. The plan is that the easterly lot, which doesn't have frontage on Fourth, which doesn't need any variances, will have 3 stall garages for both of those units. On the 2 westerly buildings, yes, that's the ultimate layout of the building, and the garage layout will depend on if the variance is approved or not approved. If it's not approved, they will probably only have 2 garage stalls each instead of 3. They probably won't significantly change the area of the actual building, so they would just decrease garage space to make it fit.
Okay, thank you.
So it seems that regardless of, it's either get them smaller. I mean, Mr. Chair, am I able to address the applicant? Or
Sure.
would you like to have a motion? Okay.
You can ask a question of the applicant.
Okay, thank you. So if we were to reduce the size of your addition, you primarily just want the yard changed. You would like the backyard to be the west side of the yard or east side, depending on which house.
They want the backyard to be the north and south, and the side yard to be the east.
Okay. Does doing that, Eric, then not even make us have to determine a size at all? You understand what I'm saying? Or do we still have to approve the variance for 30 feet on that new backyard and 30 feet or less than 30 feet on the side yards, the new side yards?
Yeah, you guys don't have to worry about the size of the building. You've just got to determine whether you'll approve the variance, and that will dictate what size will fit based on the setbacks they have to meet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I can make another comment, it appears to me that the issue of what's going to be built is just, again, depending on the space. And so I believe the backyard to the east would actually have more green space back there, because some of that land back there was sold to property owners to the east in Audubon Park, right, Eric?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
So there is more green space back there, more than their 10 feet. It belongs to the neighbor behind them, but it's open and it's grass. So I guess given that, I don't like the idea of the density and how these will look, but if they're going to happen anyway, then I would make them look really good. And so I would suggest changing my vote here, not that I have a vote, but my opinion, that then they ought to look good, and they should have enough space to make sure they look good. That makes sense, Eric, in your mind?
We can hear you.
Okay, board members, I guess I'm back to entertaining a motion.
This is Thornsberry. I move that we approve the request by Kasim Mustadanajic, for a variance to the rear yard setback requirement to allow for a 10-foot setback, 20 feet less than the 30 feet rear yard setback required, to allow for the construction of 2 duplexes in an R1, 1 and 2 family residence district located south of 4245 West 4th Street. For the following reasons. 1, the request would not appear to have a negative impact on the surrounding neighborhood. 2, the request would not appear to have a negative impact upon pedestrian and traffic conditions within the surrounding area. 3, the request is in conformance with the future land use map and comprehensive plan for this area, which designates this area as low density residential.
Is there a second?
Beckman will second it.
Okay.
So
Any further comments?
yeah, just is there any way, Eric, or is this necessary or possible to say what we're doing clearly, that we're changing the essential backyard from north and south to east and west?
I think it would be covered if you want to add a condition of a minimum setback of 30 feet to the north property line of the northerly lot and south property line of the southerly lot.
I would like that addendum if that's possible, Jerry.
All right, hang on. Setback 30 feet of the northerly lot. Say again, Eric.
So the subject to a condition that the northerly lot would have a minimum 30-foot setback from the north property line, and the southerly lot would have a minimum 30-foot setback from the southerly line. Basically making those meet a minimum rear yard, even though the ordinance considers them a side yard. You don't have to add all that last stuff, just the minimum 30 foot from the north line and the south line.
Amend my motion to add the subject to the condition of a 30-foot setback from the north lot line and 30-foot setback from the southern lot line.
I'll second that as well.
Does that
Thank
work,
you.
Eric? Okay.
So I'd just like to have a note on the record that the Board of Adjustments does not have a say if these buildings are built or not. We are simply dealing with size of the yards, so that way it's on the record for citizens that may have that question. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Guess I'll call for the vote then. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, the motion passed.
I'd like to, Bob, I just want to quickly say thank you for that. That made a lot of sense what you said there at the end. That there's going to be additional green space, and it is more important that they look nice than we restrict them and then make them look poor. So, thank you.
Okay. So our discussion items, the adoption of the general rules of public participation. Did everybody have a chance to review those for the Board of Adjustment portion?
Yes.
Which is a little bit different than the Planning Commission one. Do we, just a second. Every time you would move something on there, my screen goes down. I think this pretty much sums up what we do and what we want done, and I would think. Do we want to? Does this need to go? Does this maybe I'm being too technical, but does this need to be publicized for the public to have any say in, Eric?
This is Schrader with staff. No, there is no requirement for general rules of participation to be that. I mean, and even without any, formally adopted general rules, then per the administrative rules, which are adopted by the board, then generally speaking, Robert Rules of Order covers. So this just kind of lays out some general expectations, but ultimately it's ultimately up to the chair as the presider of the meeting to enforce it and kind of determine what leniency is given towards it.
Trying to go to something.
That's because of cost.
Yeah.
We're gonna vote.
What's the pleasure of the board? Would you want to go ahead and act on this meeting then?
I think it would be good too.
I would.
I agree.
Um,
And Jerry sent me a document that's kind of a little bit more of a generalized overview of what a Board of Adjustment does, and framework under the Code of Ordinances. And there was some thought that that might be a good idea to have available almost as like a additional handout to the agenda. But we're kind of still working on that. Jerry, if you want to talk more on that, but I think I could, put something together, and it's more of just informational on what the current, codes are. So I don't necessarily think it's anything that would need to be acted on like we're recommending this is, but, just trying to get more information out there to the public so they kind of understand the process a little better.
yeah. Just clarification, if we vote on this, we're voting on that box starting with number 8, but number 8 would become our number 1, correct?
That is correct. I did not notice that until now.
Oh, you have numbers on yours?
So it's 1 through 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 through 6 then?
Correct.
That would be correct. Yes.
Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion?
Well, just another correction. B is, if you look on the first one, the parentheses on B is the wrong direction.
Good catch.
Yeah, I move that we move forward with the general rules for public participation as suggested to us here in this email.
I second that.
Okay, any discussion?
Thank you for your work on this, guys. I know I kind of just threw it out of the water last meeting, so thanks.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I want to explain a little bit to support what Eric was saying. The reason I thought it was important for the public to understand what responsibilities we have as a board was based on all of the comments we were having about the solar farm. And I just felt like there was not a clear understanding about what parameters we have to make our decisions. And I thought if we had a single piece of paper that maybe could be copied on the back of the agenda or something, just to give citizens an idea of how important these decisions are.
Okay, sounds good. Speaking of that, brought up a question to me, for me, was the solar farm. Wasn't there a question, Eric, that they wanted to come back and reduce Jerry's request for a bond?
This is Schrader with staff. They did express concern on that after the meeting, but I have not, after the meeting, we then, put together the minutes and they did express concern on that. They expressed difficulty on how it would be calculated, but concern on what the amount would end up being, but they have not followed up with that and submitted any formal request to change it.
Okay.
Eric, just one more thing on number 13 on here. I think it would be good to put the proper title of P&Z, Planning, Programming, and Zoning. Or is that your department?
Yeah, the actual commission is the Planning, Programming, and Zoning Commission. I'll double check, but I think Planning and Zoning Department or the other it might officially be the Community Planning and Development Department, but sometimes depends on if you're referring to both the Planning Department and Community Development Department, then it's referred to as the Community Planning and Development. But they're sometimes jointly referred to as the Planning and Zoning Department and the Community Development Department. So I'll look at that though.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Jeez.
just whatever the people know. Planning and zoning, we know. That's fine.
Goodness.
Sorry.
I'll admit, I've been here 18 years and I get confused what department ours is between community development, and it's just like one word difference.
We can have a nice discussion about that off the record one day.
Yeah.
Okay, the last discussion item would be before that, is there anybody's term? I meant to look this up. Is there anybody's term that's expiring at the end of this year?
No.
Okay. With that, I don't know, what do you do it by nomination for chairman and vice chairman?
That's what we did last year. Well, I'll nominate Brad for chair and Jerry for vice chair.
Second.
Thank you. I would consider continuing.
Same here.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So with that, we'll if there's no further items, we'll adjourn to our meeting in January. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Be safe driving home if you're not at home right now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
looks-